Joining us now, Nick Freitas, House of Delegates member from the Culpeper area along Central Virginia. Nick also ran for U.S. Senate in 2018, lost a very close primary to Corey Stewart, and he is with us now. Nick, great to have you.
Great to be on, John.
Okay, first question. Let's get the priorities out of the way. Valentine's Day, Tina Freitas, what's the plan?
Oh, well, gosh, if I said so on the air, it would destroy everything.
Oh, don't be cagey. Don't be cagey. Now, I mean, the dinner.
She's gonna be coming down with. So we have a bit of a Valentine's tradition since I've been in the General Assembly. She's actually coming down to Richmond today, and she's bringing my youngest daughter, Allie. And Allie always dresses up in red, and she sits with me on the floor during Valentine's Day. And we get to spend a little daddy-daughter time, and then after that, I'm sure Tina and I will be going out to dinner.
That's so nice, Nick. Very nice. All right, that's a nice Valentine's Day. You passed the test. Very nice. Okay. Plus, your wife, Tina, is going to be running for the U.S. Senate. She's told me she's challenging. I'm not going to ask for your opinion. I'm just giving this as general information. I understand that
State Senate.
She's going to be announcing her candidacy for State Senate on Saturday, and she'll be challenging State Senator Republican Emmett Hanger for the Republican nomination. Nick, have they decided how that's going to be decided? Will that be a convention or a primary?
It's going to be a primary.
Okay. Well, there's going to be a very formidable challenge to Senator Hanger. No question. That's a Republican area. Whoever wins that is going to win that race. So we'll be closely watching it. And, you know, I like a lot of what Emmett Hanger's done, but man, it would be tough not to back your wife. I mean, she's a firebrand, no doubt. So we'll see what plays out. We look forward to her announcement on Saturday. Nick, I want to get to the major tax cut you guys passed this week that the governor has said he's going to sign. And my narrative is he only said he was going to sign it because anything you put in front of him now to get himself and blackface off the headlines, he's going to say yes. I don't think he can get there fast enough. But I love this tax cut because I love the simplicity of it. Can you elaborate a bit on it?
Sure. So one of the things that the Trump tax cuts did that I think everybody really appreciated was it made the tax code simpler. The problem was the simplicity at the federal level was going to cause complexity at the state level because of itemization and a lot of the other things going on. So what we did, we had discussed a couple different ways that we could do this, and our goal had always been, how do we get the most amount of money back to the taxpayer as possible? But I think that through the discussions, we managed to come up with a system that did get that money back while at the same time maintaining the spirit of what we were trying to do at the federal level, which was instead of creating a litany of difficult itemizations, we just drastically increased the automatic deductions that you could get for a single household for a joint filing, while maintaining some of the things that were necessary in there so that that businesses didn't take a huge hit and have to start laying people off. But I'm really happy. It's like anything else, right? Are there things that we could have done better? Sure. But I think there's a lot to be proud of in this, both with how much money is going back to the taxpayer, as well as keeping in line with that simplicity of just making it easier to fill out your taxes by drastically increasing the deductions instead of creating an environment where you're not itemizing on your federal, but you're itemizing on your SNAP, the only way you can get your money back. So I think overall we did the right thing, and I'm very happy about it.
I think you guys did an excellent job, and I love the simplicity of 2018 because you couldn't get to conformity in the short period of time you had. Because there's only 2 months and everybody would have to change. So you just basically said, look, if you're a couple, you're going to get a $220 rebate in October, single 110. The brilliance and non-complexity of that is like, all I know is, all right, I got to deal with the state taxes this year, blah, blah, blah. I get it. But, in October, I'm going to get $220 back. Done, right? And then all this other stuff starts next year. I mean, I think this is one of the best things you guys have ever done. And it was bipartisan.
Well, it had to be in order to get to the 80 votes necessary to have the emergency clause on there to make sure that we could do this right away. Because people are going through difficulty right now trying to file their taxes and not knowing how to do it is incredibly frustrating to people. And there's a lot of opportunity costs associated with that. When you're, not only do you have to fill your taxes, but you're going to have to go back and make corrections. So I really think the General Assembly stepped up and did the job amidst all the chaos that's going on in the executive branch right now. I will tell you, John, to be perfectly honest, though, it was very frustrating sitting there the day that we had this bill before us. It was a good bill. It had bipartisan support. And, you know, there's always going to be a few legislators that decide that it's appropriate to come out there and cast aspersions on the rest of us. And that happened, and it was very frustrating to listen to. But all of us looked at this from the standpoint of, you know, it's more important that we get this passed than it is to stand up and defend ourselves, even if the accusations are false, even if the accusations are frustrating. And there were some people that were clearly trying to divert attention away from the scandals in the executive branch by trying to pretend that we were doing something mean-spirited in this tax code, and nothing could be further from the truth. And I think that played itself out when it passed on a 90 to 4 vote. Or 95 to 4 vote.
Nick, for those of our listeners that didn't really know about that because they don't follow it in that detail, just give us one example of what you're referring to. Just one example so everybody can put it into proper context.
So we were essentially listening to floor speeches by a couple of the members that suggested that we were being cruel to the poor, that this was, even suggestions that we were being racist. Now, keep in mind, all this tax plan did was say that if you're paying the tax that's being cut, we're going to make sure you get your money back. Now, the governor originally had a plan where he wanted to give a tax cut to people that weren't paying the tax that we were actually cutting, that had actually been cut. And that's not a tax cut at that point. That's government spending. But we had a couple of people that decided to try to use that as an opportunity, I think, to flip the narrative, to climb out of the scandal mess that they're in right now and try to project things onto us that was just completely inappropriate, completely wrong. I mean, we have members of our General Assembly that have, if you listen to their personal stories, John, they have overcome some incredible things. I mean, I know what it is to be working 50 hours a week as a young person and have my heat turned off in the winter because I couldn't afford to pay the bill. And to have people basically suggest that we don't know what it's like, that was really frustrating. But we had a choice. We could sit there and fight with them about it, or we could make sure that this got done. We got the votes we needed, and we got it done, and that was more important to us.
All right, Nick Freitas, tell us about the budget overall. Are you guys close on a deal?
So the budget right now is going into conference. There's a little, I'll admit, there's a little bit of frustration there. I think that it's a very important tradition that budget bills really originate in the House, and that the only budget bill that really goes forward is the budget bill from the House. That's always been considered the people's chamber. We certainly take into account the concerns and interests of both the governor and the Senate. So we'll go forward. I'm confident that we'll get something done. Everyone recognizes how important it is. I do think again, this is not our biannual budget. We're simply making adjustments as necessary based off of the budget that we did last year. But I think it is very important that those bills come from the House with Senate input, and I'm confident that's what we have, and we're done.
John Frederick's Radio Network. We're with Nick Freitas, House of Delegates member from the Culpeper area, also part of Orange and Madison counties. That's the 30th district. He's a Republican. Nick, let's get to some of the nonsense that's gone on at the executive level in Virginia. Right now we're the laughingstock of the nation. The New York Post running a headline saying Virginia's for losers. We're the butt of jokes on Saturday Night Live, nighttime talk shows. The biggest ridiculous thing here is our Attorney General calling on Ralph Northam to resign for blackface on Saturday. Comes out he did blackface on Monday, but then he's not going to resign. I mean, the whole thing is a comedy. It's a clown show. No question about it. But look, here's the reality. The governor's not resigning. Herring, the attorney general, is not resigning. So the Democrats are going to have to deal with that. And I've talked to Fairfax's people, and he is dug in. He is not going anywhere. What happens now?
Well, I think that, again, at this point, we've had one Democrat that has come forward and suggested impeachment. And I think a lot of people within the African-American community were frustrated by that. You have two members of the executive branch who are both white that had done something racist. They admit to doing it. and they're not going anywhere. We have one member that has been accused. I find the accusations very believable, but we have a tradition in this country that belief is not sufficient to convict someone or destroy their lives. And the fact that was the direction where somebody was suggesting impeachment, I think, was very frustrating to a lot of people, because we believe in due process in this country. In the meantime, like you said, John, it's amazing the hypocrisy here, where you find out that the governor has engaged in something that is blatantly racist, blatantly inappropriate. The Attorney General calls for his resignation based off of those things. We find out that he did the same thing, and then all of a sudden he's not all that concerned about resigning anymore. So it's a mess. Now, thankfully, we don't rely on them to get the job done around here this year. The Republican legislature has stood up. We've done our job. We've done what we needed to get done, and we'll continue to do that. But this does cause some major issues for Virginia. It's also really unfortunate that this happened during the 400th anniversary of the Virginia General Assembly, because I think the people of Virginia deserve more than that. I don't like the fact that Virginia is currently being defined by three people in the executive branch that I agree. I don't think they should be there. And Virginia is so much more than the temporary occupants of the governor or lieutenant governor and the attorney general's office. So I do hope that at some point they all decide to do the right thing. But at this point, it doesn't look like that's going to happen, and that's very unfortunate. And in the meantime, I do think we are going to have to go forward in some capacity in order to give the accusers a chance to be able to tell their story with respect to Lieutenant Governor Fairfax. And we also have to go through the process of ensuring that Justin Fairfax also has an opportunity to respond to that, because, again, we value due process in this country, and due process is there for both the accused and the accuser.
So, Nick Freitas, Delegate Freitas, so are you in favor of impeachment papers being drawn up in the House of Delegates at this time or not?
The problem that I see with trying to do that at this time is that it puts the legislature in the position of being an investigative body with respect to determining whether or not a crime has even taken place. It is one thing for us to determine whether or not a crime rises to the level of impeachment. And clearly, if Justin Fairfax is guilty of this, these crimes would rise to that level. But I wonder whether or not we're starting a dangerous precedent by making the General Assembly an investigative body in the sort of capacity that they're currently talking about. I think that's something that's probably more appropriate for law enforcement to conduct than it is for the General Assembly. So we'll see what happens going forward. I definitely think that there needs to be some investigation, because his accusers deserve to be heard. And again, if the evidence plays out, then they deserve justice. But I do question whether or not impeachment is the appropriate proceeding at this time.
Nick Freitas, excellent analysis of that. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for that. Hey, before you take off, so I know your wife is running for state senate against Emmett Hanger, right? Let's put that on the side for a second. Nick, a lot of people have come to me and said, hey, Nick Freitas is the guy to run for Congress. And I'm serious. I've probably heard this from 50 people. Like, Nick's the guy to run for Congress. On the Republican side, in the 7th district, he's got the best opportunity to put up a good fight against newly elected Representative Abigail Spanberger, who beat Dave Bratt. A lot of the other candidates who have emerged, a lot of my friends are saying, they can't win. Freitas is the guy. Is that something you're seriously evaluating?
I don't. I will tell you honestly, John, it's not something I've ruled out, but I'm really not inclined. I do think there's some other people that have put their names forward, or at least I know are strongly suggesting it, that I think would be great candidates. I don't know. I don't like to predict the future. All I can tell you is in the present, it's not something that I'm seriously considering right now.
Even though you ran for Senate in 2018, why wouldn't you run for Congress in 2020?
Well, part of that has to do with timing, with respect to what the Senate represented and what we were trying to achieve at that particular time. Mm-hmm. The other thing too that I'm taking into consideration is, who would be the best person to run against Spanberger, and I don't know that it would be me. So,
do you have any other names? Do you have any other names?
Well, I know there's some other people that are considering it. I certainly don't want to speak for them at this point. But the important thing is that ultimately this is not about me running or whatnot. This is about who is the best person that we could put forward that would have the chance of flipping this seat, because the 7th District is a Republican seat. And we need to have someone that can be able to be highly competitive in that area.
I mean, that's what I'm going to
be looking for.
I just look at this stuff clearly, right? I'm an analyst. I don't know where you're going to get a better candidate than somebody that's in the House of Delegates, has a record, ran for Senate, ran a statewide campaign, has his name out there, almost beat Corey Stewart, came from nowhere, almost beat him. I don't know how you can sit around and say, well, I don't think I'm the best candidate. I mean, maybe there's another candidate that I don't.
Again, that's what I'm saying. I don't know one way or the other at this point. We're going to have to see